A single blooper reel from Mork and Mindy was locked away for decades. When clips finally surfaced, they revealed something nobody expected. Robin Williams wasn't just improvising dialogue, he was doing things to her co-star that shocked even the 1970s crew. He would grab her, flash her, even appear completely naked on set while she tried to act. The director admitted he saw it happen, but did nothing. Writers left gaps in scripts, knowing Robin would do something unpredictable. The question is, why did America's sweetest sitcom hide such a dark secret? In May 1977, Gary Marshall's 8-year-old son, Scott, suddenly stopped watching Happy Days. He was glued to Star Wars, running around pretending to be R2-D2 and C-3PO. When Marshall asked why he didn't watch his dad's show anymore, Scott said, "There are no space aliens on Happy Days." That one sentence hit Marshall hard. His own son was more interested in a galaxy far, far away than the nostalgic sitcom he created. So Marshall burst into the writer's room and declared, "Scotty wants a spaceman." Nobody understood what he meant at first, but that moment would reshape TV history. By fall 1977, Happy Days was still a ratings powerhouse with over 30 million viewers. But behind the scenes, the show was creatively fading. The infamous Fonzie Jumps the Shark episode aired on September 20th and became a symbol of shows going off the rails. Fonzie was turning into a superhero, doing stunts that made no sense. Viewers were losing the emotional connection that once made the show great. That's when Marshall decided to take a huge risk. If kids like Scott wanted aliens, maybe it was time to give them one. At first, they cast respected stage actor Roger Rees to play the alien. Rees had a strong theater background and was seen as perfect for the job. But just before filming began, he quit. He said the script was terrible and the production was chaotic. Dom DeLuise had already passed on the part too. Nobody wanted to play an alien on a sitcom about 1950s teens. With days left before shooting, the team was stuck. Then someone remembered a wild performer from the streets of Hollywood. Robin Williams had been doing alien-like characters outside the Comedy Store, collecting coins in a hat. Gary's sister, casting director Ronnie Hallen, had seen him and said, "The hat's pretty full." Al Molinaro, who played Al on the show, had also seen Williams in an improv class and called Marshall, urging him to meet this guy. With nothing to lose, they invited him to audition. On February 28, 1978, Williams walked into Paramount's Stage 19. Marshall told him to take a seat. Williams flipped the chair over and sat upside down, feet in the air. That was it. He became Mork the moment he walked in. Richard Lewis had auditioned just before and walked out saying, "If Robin doesn't get this, you're all crazy." My Favorite Orkin aired that same day, February 28th, as episode 22 of season 5. In the episode, Mork arrived in a flying saucer to kidnap Richie Cunningham as a specimen. The plot was written as a dream sequence to avoid ruining the show's setting. Mork battled Fonzie, creating one of the strangest scenes ever on Happy Days. Critics hated it, but nobody cared. Robin Williams stole the show. His energy and ad-libs overwhelmed the weak script. Audiences saw something they'd never seen before. The episode became one of the top-rated in Happy Days history, scoring 8.5 out of 10 on IMDb. Just 4 days after the episode aired, ABC locked down Robin Williams for a spin-off. They didn't wait for a pilot. They just spliced together footage from his Happy Days appearance with clips of Pam Dauber from a failed pilot called Sister Terry. Mork and Mindy was born. It premiered in September 1978 and became an instant hit. It pulled a 28.6 Nielsen rating and ranked 3rd nationally, right behind Laverne and Shirley and Three's Company. It even beat Happy Days. ABC used Mork and Mindy as part of its Thursday night lineup, squeezing it between Happy Days and Laverne and Shirley. Ratings skyrocketed. The show Angie which aired right after, got a 41 share just from Mork's lead-in. For a while, ABC had 6 of the top 10 shows in the country. During the week that Roots di Situ aired, Mork and Mindy even beat parts of that historic miniseries. Mork wasn't just a TV character, he became a cultural wave. His rainbow suspenders were sold across America. People lined up to buy Mork action figures and egg-shaped spaceships. Stores like Sears couldn't keep up with demand. Robin's Nanu Nanu hand gesture became as iconic as Spock's Vulcan salute. Writers even left blank spots in the scripts saying, "Robin will do something here," because his improv was impossible to predict. Robin Williams, who had no agent, no film career, and just one failed TV show on his resume, became a superstar overnight. He'd been performing in tiny clubs and on sidewalks just a year earlier. His first stage was a bar in San Francisco called the Holy City Zoo, where he worked as a bartender before they let him perform. David Letterman, who saw Williams for the first time at the Comedy Store, said, "There goes my chance in show business." Even Happy Days had to adjust to Mork's fame. In syndication, they edited reruns to add scenes showing Mork erasing everyone's memory so it fit with the new spin-off. The success was unlike anything television had seen. The impact reached beyond TV. The show was set in Boulder, Colorado, and suddenly fans were showing up from around the world. The house used in the show was bought for $80,000 in 1974 and is now worth $3.1 million. Tourists still visit Pearl Street Mall and the University of Colorado campus just to feel closer to Mork. Boulder embraced it all, offering guided tours and turning the show into part of the city's legacy. When Pam Dauber finally opened up in March 2018, no one expected what she would say. She had kept quiet for almost 40 years. From 1978 to 1982, she worked side by side with Robin Williams on Mork and Mindy. The show made both of them stars, but what happened behind the scenes was something no one outside the studio ever saw. She said the things Robin did to her were gross. He would flash her, grab her, even hump her during filming. She said it happened a lot. But what shocked people even more was that she said she never took offense. She thought it was fun. She blamed it on his charm. Even now, she said, if you wrote it down, it sounded awful. But he had those sparkly eyes. That way of making it all seem like a joke. Gary Marshall, who produced the show, backed up what she said. He remembered Robin standing completely naked in front of her while she tried to act. It wasn't once or twice. He did it so often that people stopped reacting. Director Howard Storm said it too. Robin would strip between takes or during rehearsals, like it was part of his routine. Pam even admitted he would show up naked on set, just being silly. No one stopped him. Everyone just accepted it. That's how it was. One day, Howard Storm saw something worse. There was an older actress on set playing Mindy's grandmother. Robin snuck up behind her and poked her between the buttocks with a cane. Storm saw it happen and didn't stop him. He just laughed. He said later he thought she'd yell or be angry, but she didn't. And no one said a word. That moment made it clear how normalized it had all become. When Robin got bored, things would escalate. He would grab Pam in the middle of a scene. Not in the script, not planned, just out of nowhere. Storm said he'd tell Robin it wasn't written in the script to grope Pam, and Robin would just say, "Oh, okay," and move on. But then it would happen again. Robin would wrestle her, hump her between takes, and grab parts of her body while the cameras rolled. Then they'd stop and just start the scene over like nothing had happened. And it didn't stop there. Pam said he'd even fart on her. She called it some of the grossest stuff she ever experienced. But she kept defending him. She said it was just the 1970s. She said he had a gigantic heart. She kept saying it felt like they were siblings. But the things she described didn't sound like brother and sister moments. They sounded like a pattern of harassment. Yet Pam kept saying it was never meant to be harmful. Robin didn't just mess around physically. He messed with the script too. He would throw in curse words in Spanish, Russian, even Yiddish. He did it right in front of the cameras, pretending it was just alien language from the planet Orc. The network didn't even realize it at first. But once people from those languages started complaining, ABC had to bring in a special censor who could understand up to 4 different languages just to catch what he was saying. Robin joked about it in interviews later, saying he liked sneaking things past the radar. He thought it was funny. And the writers were doing it too. One of them, April Kelly, pulled off something so sneaky it shocked everyone. She wrote a scene in 1978 or 1979 where Mork gets invited to a ball hosted by the Benoit sister. But the name was a trick. It was pronounced Benoit, a hidden reference to a sexual toy. The censors didn't catch it because the spelling looked French. But the joke went out on live TV during Family Hour. Kelly said it was one of her proudest moments as a writer. The scripts were always short on purpose. There were lines in the script that literally just said, "Robin will do something here." The writers didn't even try to control him. Howard Storm said Robin could memorize the whole script after reading it once. He'd spend the next few days doing wild stuff, climbing walls, running off script, making jokes on the spot. Then by Friday, he'd go back to the script for the actual filming. Writers would watch rehearsals and steal his jokes to put into future episodes. They stayed up until 4 in the morning rewriting things to match whatever Robin had done that day. There was one episode that nearly didn't make it. In late 1978 or early 1979, April Kelly wrote a story about nuclear power. ABC shut it down right after it was filmed. They said there was no proof nuclear power was unsafe. But then the 3 Mile Island accident happened on March 28, 1979. Suddenly, the network looked ridiculous. Over that weekend, another writer called Political Contacts and gathered evidence using fax machines. No internet, just paper. ABC gave in and let the episode air, but they still made them change a lot of it. To capture all of Robin's chaos, Gary Marshall added a 4th camera to the set. No other sitcom did that. Normally it was 3 cameras fixed in place, but Robin kept going off script, moving all over the stage, and doing things the main cameras couldn't catch. That extra camera followed him around nonstop. It cost the studio more money, but they said it was worth it. They didn't want to miss any of his magic, even if some of that magic was wild, unpredictable, and hard to explain. Robin Williams was called a genius by many, and he was. But what Pam Dauber revealed in 2018 made people look at that genius a little differently. She described a man who got away with things no one else could. A man whose charm made people laugh instead of speak up. A man whose talent was so bright that it covered up things that should have never happened. And for 4 years, on one of the most popular shows in America, everyone around him looked the other way. When Mork and Mindy premiered in September 1978, it exploded with 60 million weekly viewers and became the 3rd highest-rated show in America. The chemistry between Robin Williams and Pam Dauber, the quirky humor, and the warmth of the supporting cast made it feel like lightning in a bottle. It was in the perfect time slot, too, airing between Happy Days and Laverne and Shirley on Thursday nights. But in September 1979, ABC made a move that nearly destroyed the show overnight. They shifted it to Sunday nights, putting it up against Archie Bunker's Place and NBC's Sunday Big Event. It was a disaster. The show fell from number 3 to number 27. Viewership dropped nearly in half. The magic was slipping away fast. The situation got worse when ABC decided to cut Fred and Cora from the show. Mindy's father and grandmother weren't just background characters, they were the emotional backbone of the entire series. Fred, played by Conrad Janis, gave the show a kind of classical dignity. Cora, played by Elizabeth Kerr, had this progressive charm that made her the perfect counterbalance. But ABC believed young people didn't want to see older faces on screen, so they were written out quietly. No drama, no proper goodbye, just gone. And with them, a huge part of the show's emotional heart disappeared. Fred came back for just 2 episodes in Season 2. Cora was seen in only 8 more episodes total. The family warmth was gone. Then came Remo and John Da Vinci. ABC introduced these deli-owning siblings from Brooklyn to add youth appeal. They were everywhere in Season 2 and 3, popping up in 27 episodes. But when that plan failed too, ABC panicked again. At the start of Season 4, they were simply erased from the show. No exit, no mention. Viewers were left confused. What happened to the new central characters? No one knew. The network just wanted them gone. It became clear that ABC had no idea what made the show work in the first place. The worst decision came when ABC tried to control Robin Williams. In Season 1, the writers left space in the scripts for him to go wild. The directions literally said things like, "Robin will do something here." That freedom was the magic. But by Season 2, ABC wanted a traditional sitcom. They forced everything into neat little storylines and boxed in Williams's energy. He got bored. He stopped doing the catchphrases like "Nanu Nanu" and "Shazbot." The sparkle that made the show feel alive started fading. Viewers noticed. The numbers dropped. The soul of the show was being squeezed out. By the time Season 4 came around, the show was costing $450,000 per episode. That was a huge budget in the early 1980s, especially for a show that had now fallen to number 60 in the ratings. The network was pouring money into a show fewer and fewer people were watching. They tried one last twist, bringing in Jonathan Winters to play Mork's son, Mirth. It was clever, Orkin's age backward. But even that brilliant pairing couldn't save the show. 4 seasons, 95 episodes, and the last year was a financial mess. Then came something even darker. In 2018, a biography titled Robin by Dave Itzkoff revealed disturbing stories about what happened behind the scenes. Pam Dauber said Robin Williams often groped her, flashed her, and even appeared naked on set. She said it in a way that tried to make it sound okay, like it was all harmless fun. It was the 70s, she said. She described it like playing with a mischievous puppy. But what she described, grabbing her breasts and butt, wrestling her down, would be considered assault by today's standards. And she wasn't the only one affected. The entire cast and crew learned to accept that this behavior was just part of the show. Director Howard Storm admitted that Williams once stuck a cane between the buttocks of the elderly actress who played Cora. Instead of stopping him, Storm laughed. He said he thought she'd turn around angry, but she didn't. No one did. Everyone brushed it off as just Robin being Robin. The production notes even left space for his chaos, as if his outbursts were just another set prop. Scripts said, "Robin will do something here." And what he did wasn't always comedy. The work environment became unstable. Williams would stop scenes to grope Dauber in the middle of a line. Then they'd just restart. Everyone would act like nothing happened. Even when the show was struggling to survive, even when the stakes were high, the rules didn't apply to Robin. The director would gently scold him, "That's not in the script," and he'd smile and move on. It wasn't just tolerated. It was baked into the way the show worked. and nobody stopped it. When Mork and Mindy premiered in 1978, it was unstoppable. But then they made a decision so bad it practically killed the show overnight. Instead of keeping it safe on Thursday nights where it thrived, ABC decided to move it to Sundays for Season 2. That put Mork and Mindy up against All in the Family, which was already dominating that night. The young fans who loved Mork weren't going to follow him into that time slot, and the older viewers weren't going to switch from Archie Bunker. The result was brutal. The show dropped from number 3 to number 27 in the ratings. It was like watching a rocket plummet from space. The momentum was gone, and it never fully came back. In Season 3, ABC panicked. They tried to fix everything at once. They moved the show back to Thursdays, brought back Fred and Cora, who had been wrongly cut, added a daycare subplot with new kids, and introduced Mindy's friend Glenda. They even aired a 1-hour episode called Putting the Orc Back in Mork, hoping that name alone would bring the magic back. But nothing worked. They pushed Robin harder than ever, throwing in wild stunts like a 3D episode just to grab attention. But the ratings kept falling. By the end of that season, it had slipped to number 49. Then came syndication in 1982. Usually, that gives shows a second life. But not Mork and Mindy. Viewers didn't want reruns. Stations pulled the show quickly. Some stopped airing it after just one summer. Within a year, Mork and Mindy was gone from most cities. The early seasons couldn't save it, and the later ones had left a bad taste. For a show that once pulled 40 million viewers, this was a shocking end. In a last-ditch gamble, ABC made a wild casting choice in 1982. They brought in 60-year-old Jonathan Winters to play Mork's baby son. Since Mork was an alien, the idea was that his child would age backward. Winters was a comic legend and a huge influence on Robin Williams. They had electric chemistry, but not the kind that could thrive under network scripts. Still, the show was desperate. Ratings had dropped all the way to number 60 by Season 4. Even Winters couldn't turn it around. Behind the scenes, ABC was still trying to save it. They came up with a bold new idea for Season 5. It was going to be called Mork and Mindy's Excellent Adventures. The idea was to have them travel through time, meeting people like Abraham Lincoln and Benjamin Franklin. ABC even shot publicity photos of Williams and Dauber posing with actors dressed as historical figures. Mork had magical shoes that let them travel through time. It would be comedy mixed with education. Years later, Bill and Ted would use the same formula to massive success. But for Mork and Mindy, it came too late. The final episodes of the series were chaos. It ended on a 3-part cliffhanger titled Gotta Run. Mork and Mindy were being hunted by a villain from Neptune named Kalnick. In the last scene, they escaped through a time vortex and landed in prehistoric times. It was meant to set up the next season, but ABC canceled the show before it could continue. They didn't even tell the cast and crew until after filming had ended. The network quickly swapped the intended finale with an earlier episode where Mork reports back to Orson about married life. That became the stand-in ending. It was directed by Robin Williams himself, the only time he ever directed. But even more disturbing than the show's fall was what later came out about the environment behind the scenes. Between 1978 and 1982, Pam Dauber kept quiet about what she endured. When she finally spoke in 2018, 4 years after Williams's death, her words were shocking. She said he constantly groped her, grabbed her, flashed her, and even humped her during scenes. He once hid behind doors completely naked, knowing she'd open them. She said he farted on her and wrestled her down during filming. It wasn't just 1 or 2 moments, it was a pattern that lasted for years. Director Howard Storm admitted Robin would show up looking like a wreck after wild nights of partying and sex. But nobody said anything. They all excused it as part of his brilliance. Even Pam herself said, "I never took offense," and "it was so much fun," brushing it off with lines like, "It was the 70s, after all." That was the excuse everyone used back then. Williams even once put a cane between the buttocks of an elderly actress playing Mindy's grandmother. It was all treated like part of the comedy. The entertainment world accepted this behavior for decades. If a man was talented and funny, he was untouchable. Everything he did was passed off as genius or harmless fun. The same charm and spark that made Robin Williams a global icon also shielded him from the kind of consequences other people would have faced. That's why when Pam finally told her story in 2018, it landed during the Twitter Me Too era, but didn't spark outrage. People still saw him as the lovable alien who said, "Nanu, Nanu." In the end, Mork and Mindy wasn't just a show that lost its ratings. It was a story of how one of the biggest hits on TV was slowly destroyed by bad decisions, wild desperation, and a culture that ignored serious behavior behind the scenes. It went from number 3 in the ratings to number 60 in just 4 years. It ended on a cliffhanger no one ever resolved. And even though ABC once dreamed of sending Mork through time to meet history's greatest minds, all that was left behind was a quiet clip show and the sound of a vortex that never got closed.